Hi. I am indeed going to talk about something new that hasn't been covered today. My name is Suzanna van Straaten. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Genzyme Europe, working for the European headquarters in the Netherlands. And I'm in the interesting situation that I work for a very small biotech company, Genzyme, that very low down on the pharmaceutical ranking list. And we have been taken over by one of the big pharma companies, Sanofi, a couple of months ago. So now we're going from a situation where it was actually, very advantageous for us to have a small company with not a lot of people that had a lot to say about many things. So very short lines. I created my own SOPs, basically, and now we're going to be part of a very big pharma company that might have, a lot of different people already doing this and a lot of different SOPs. So hopefully this is not the last time I can do something like this. So like I said, in order to talk about this tactic, I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual product strategy. I'm going to let you take a peek into the kitchen of Genzyme, and I'm also going to take this opportunity to convince you of something. I'm going to start out with a question. How many people in the room, by a show of hands, believe that calcium is good for you? I would say that's probably everybody. How many of you know somebody with chronic kidney disease or are on dialysis? Show of hands. Okay, quite a lot of people. How many of you believe calcium is good for patients with chronic kidney disease? See a few hands. Some of you may not know. Anyway, it's logical that you think that calcium is good for you. We know most of this through the media. For years and years, we know that calcium makes your bones strong, right? Super, that's how milk makes you feel. The calcium helps bones grow strong, so even if you're not from Krypton, you can have bones of steel. Yeah. And you can do magic. You can be a hero. So, one of our strategies is actually about calcium. So what do we know about calcium? Calcium and phosphate are essential building blocks of the body, bones, and teeth, and are taken in mainly through the diet. Excess calcium is excreted by the kidney through the urine. However, patients with chronic kidney disease don't have a working kidney anymore and are no longer able to excrete the excess calcium. Therefore, they require medications called phosphate binders. There are 3 types of phosphate binders. There are calcium-containing phosphate binders, metal-containing phosphate binders, and calcium-free and metal-free binders. Now, the product that I'm responsible for, Renal, is a calcium-free, metal-free binder. However, globally, calcium-based phosphate binders are first choice. A little bit about chronic kidney disease. It's a major health problem. You probably already know 5 to 10% of the population globally is affected. However, these patients with chronic kidney disease, they don't die of kidney disease. They mainly die of cardiovascular disease. And in fact, cardiovascular risk is increased as a result of being prescribed calcium-based phosphate binders. So what happens is calcium taken in from the diet or through binders accumulates in the body, deposits in soft tissues, the heart and the blood vessels, and they cause something called calcifications. So they cause, in fact, the arteries to become bone-like structures. So in fact, giving patients with chronic kidney disease extra calcium besides the diet causes calcifications, and calcifications lead to death. And here I show you an X-ray. You've probably seen one before. And also it's obvious that I think this is the vertebrae. You can see those show up, it's bone. They show up on an X-ray. Also, you see something else, another structure here. Anybody have an idea what it is? It's the aorta. Now the aorta is a blood vessel, it's soft tissue. It's not supposed to show up on an X-ray. Well, in fact, it is showing up on an X-ray because it's turned into bone. So that's how bad it is. These patients, 80% of these patients with chronic kidney disease have this type of calcification that leads to their death. But calcium is good for you, right? Calcium is good for the bone. Everybody knows that. Why is the subject of calcium so controversial? Why is it so difficult to consider that calcium might be harmful? Not good. So how can we increase awareness about this topic and actually change behavior of the doctors that prescribe calcium-based phosphate binders? So this has become one of our key strategies. Expose the risks of calcium when used as a phosphate binder compared to non-calcium binders. The opportunity is, like I said before, calcium is the most widely used phosphate binder globally, particularly as initial therapy. And our objective is calcium should be avoided in CKD patients to make them live longer. And we have all the scientific evidence to prove it. So, in fact, the scientific evidence is there. There's a lot of scientific evidence about this. You may have even seen it in the media. But doctors don't act on it. And they don't act on it because they don't really see it. When they see a CKD patient in front of them, they don't see the calcification unless they specifically look for it. And that's not part of their standard practice. So they don't see it, and therefore, maybe it doesn't exist, and they don't have to change their behavior. So our objective is, alongside of the marketing mix, the rest of the marketing mix is to develop an innovative digital tactic to support the product strategy. We have a strategy, we have many tactics, including the traditional marketing tools, ad boards, consensus meetings, detail aids, reps, you name it. But we wanted something innovative, something ingenious to create a new interest in a well-known disease. And we wanted to try to visualize the consequences of giving calcium to CKD patients in order to change the doctor's behavior. So really make it real. Augment reality. So that's what we did. We wanted also a multi-purpose e-tool. We're a small company, we don't have a lot of resources. I work for Europe, so here again we have a problem with regulatory issues, guidelines in all the different countries, and we wanted something that could be used and implemented across Europe without too many hassles, so to speak. We wanted something that we could use at the booth at big European congresses to increase the booth attendance of the doctors, create leads for local follow-up, pull the target group to the renvela.eu website, which was created. We wanted it to be available online and offline so we could use it across countries as a demonstration tool for reps, integration into e-details, that sort of thing. And it should be a global tool, one common language. So that's augmented reality. In fact, what is augmented reality? Had to look at Wikipedia for that. Is a term for live, direct, or indirect views of a physically real-world environment whose elements are augmented by virtual computer-generated imagery. It's a long sentence. But in fact, what it is, it's using a symbol that is recognized by a webcam to trigger a 3D animation. That's really what it is. So what we did, created this card. Europe created this card, but other countries created different cards according to their local guidelines with our key messages, with or without branding. They could do it whichever way they wanted to, as long as it contained the symbol on the back. And with the instructions on for doctors how to access this augmented reality. Because it's linked to a web page, you can also give this card to a doctor, have him take it home and do it at home or do it in his practice, have nurses do it to demonstrate it to patients. So many, many purposes for this tool. Like I said, it's accessible through a website. We did also, because of regulatory guidelines or ease of use, we have two websites. One is renvela.eu, but as you know, not every country can actually promote such a website, so that might make it difficult for some countries. So we also have another website which is non-branded, except for Genzyme, which is calcifiedheart.eu. So on the website, you have the instructions to see how it works. And what I want to show you right now is a short video that we made that sort of shows you what it is, how we used it at the EDTA, which is a big European nephrology congress. And also, so what you will see, I'll tell you before it starts going, is you see the heart. You will see the coronary arteries on the outside of the heart, and you will see how those calcifications occur, how they come in. And then here's the aorta, and you will see the calcifications come in there as well. Oh. Can you go back, please, and play the video? So some of the results for this, this digital tool, definitely at congresses, it increased the number of stand visits. Lots and lots of people were attracted to the stand to see what was going on there, which was really, really a lot of fun. It increased the hit rate on renvela.eu and calcifiedheart.eu. It's been used throughout congresses, local congresses in Europe. Because it's not branded, it's easy to use. So a lot of my colleagues have used it. There's an excitement, a fun factor, some of the things that were said by doctors that were actually doing this at the Congress. Is this really my heart? I mean, doctors. There was one doctor that said, let me take the pens out of my coat pocket first and take my jacket off. You can see better. Doctors spent more time on the booth. They were looking at each other. They were looking at, the technology, but also were more engaged. And it made it much easier for the booth staff to actually go into a detailed conversation about what they were actually seeing at the booth. And we believe, this link is a link from science to real life. I will not give my patient calcium because I can see the consequences. It's made real, and then there is another option. So we hope it leads to changed behavior. So how many of you believe calcium is good for patients with chronic kidney disease? So I hope I managed to convince you. So we did win 2 prizes, which of course we're very proud of, but we have to remember, and here again, we're not doing this to win prizes, obviously. We're doing this for our patients, and these are, in this case, patients with chronic kidney disease, and we hope to make them be able to get the best treatment they can and in order to have a longer life. Thank you. Any questions?
That, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Any questions for Suzanna? In the back. Oh, sorry. In the back, there's a question.
Hi, I just have one question. Did you then encourage the physicians to use this with their patients?
We talked to the countries, because I don't, do it myself, but we did talk to the countries and ask them, is this something that you can use in your countries to demonstrate to nurses, especially nurses, to show to patients? And there are definitely countries that have done that, yes.
Okay.
More questions? Yes, in the back.
Hi. Did you come across any sort of technology limitations in any markets? I worked for a design agency, and we work with other sort of industries as well as the pharma industry. And one thing that we've seen is that augmented reality, the one limitation is people's actual connection to broadband speeds, and having the webcam facility installed at homes. So where I think it's been something that's been bandied around by agencies to sort of create excitement with their clients, that conversion then into actually being a tool that's been used has been probably is quite low. And so for something like this, we'd probably end up doing a sort of visual, like a film, creating an animation of it, rather than actually doing augmented reality. And I didn't know what your experience of that was, especially within the UK, if it was live in the UK.
Sorry, the last part, I didn't understand the last part about the UK.
Did you find like the doctors in their surgeries, did they have the ability to
do it?
To do it?
Yeah, I don't know specifically about the UK, but I do know medical congresses in the UK and other countries as well, where that's where mainly it's been used, because we were able to control those technology if there was any issues, but there haven't really been. And I haven't heard from any of the countries either that they have experienced issues. I have a simple webcam myself, and it's no problem to actually do it. So I feel that it's quite easy to use.
There was another question here.
Hi, so I think the augmented reality concept, it's quite exciting, and I think it's, a nice innovative way of, I guess, trying to put across your messages. Now, we've used augmented reality at meetings, and I've seen it work quite successfully at congresses. And I guess to your point, the piece that I'm interested in is now where you're, I guess, almost producing what you could call a leaf piece, how the field force are using those. So I guess I've got two questions. One is, I guess, actually how it works. So if the doctor has a leaf piece and they have their webcam, how is it used to increase traffic to your website? So when you have the image, and does the webcam piece work on your branded website, or is it a separate piece?
Yeah, so if you go to renvela.eu, you will see the picture of a calcified heart, and it'll say, if you want to see calcification of the heart, click here, and then you click, and then you go to the instruction page, and then it just gives you the instructions. It says, if you want to see how this works, print out the symbol. So then it'll have this symbol, and if you press print, it will print out. So you need that symbol. So you don't need the actual card to take it with you. You can actually print it out from the website. Okay. And then once you have the symbol, it'll ask you automatically to turn on your webcam. So it'll just pop on like normal. Do you allow your webcam? And then you say yes. And then the minute you go like this, it'll start happening.
Okay. And then I guess following on from that, so you've said that you've seen an increase in traffic to your sites, and this has been launched across Europe. Have you seen any trends where in specific markets this has worked better than others, or particular success markets, or markets where it hasn't worked so well?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because again, this is something that we in Europe, working for Europe, always run into, which was discussed a little bit earlier as well, is the different guidelines where you can promote something like that. So if in countries where that are able, for example, Greece, for example. That's a country that doesn't have very strict guidelines on websites, for example. So they can promote renvela.eu. So they can actually actively go out with the reps and promote this tool and this website. But for example, Germany, they can't use renvela.eu because it hasn't been approved for Germany, so they cannot promote that website. But they can use the calcified heart.eu. So you have to take that into consideration when you create something like this.
Any more questions?
Hello. I'm quite interested to learn that how you evaluate this event. I think it's quite really good idea, but how you evaluate. Do you do some kind of post-event survey among all the HCPs or something else? Thank you.
Of course, that's a great question. It's always good to measure. We actually have questionnaires that we fill out at the booth as well, alongside with this. So it wasn't a one-off tactic. It was part of something else as well. So we also had a survey to go along with it. And before the doctors were able to do this, they had to answer some questions. So we actually found that at the Congress were 8,000 participants, and we had 3,000 surveys completed, which is one way to measure this.
Yes, there, Sam.
Sorry, I ran a workshop yesterday, so for those of you who didn't attend, on augmented reality, so I've got a lot of demos, but just coming back to the point from the gentleman in the back, a lot of the technology now is using flash-based, so doctors have better access for the augmented reality. I've also got quite a few demos where it's being used through mobile devices as well. And we showed an example from Blipper, which actually doesn't require Wi-Fi access as well. As soon as you've got the app, you can actually use an AR experience. So come and find me if you want to see any more case studies from healthcare, because it was shown yesterday at the workshop.
So this is pretty new, actually, as you demonstrated, because I don't think many people have experience with augmented reality. So when you started developing this, how hard was that to get it through internally with compliance?
Yeah, great question. And like I said, we didn't have any e-digital or e-marketing SOPs at all. So what I did is what Tom mentioned earlier is actually we got at the very first stadium, we got the regulatory, medical, and legal people around the table and said, look, this has been the proposal, and we don't have any guidelines, so let's make them as we go along. And so we did.
And then another thing, because this is very new, then always the question is it expensive?
It's to create the actual program. It wasn't that expensive. No, I mean, it wasn't cheap either, but it wasn't hugely expensive. And the good thing about it is once it's been created, you can use it again and again and again and again. And countries can use it too. So we made the investment as Europe, and the countries can just use it for free.
And that's the final question from my side. You said, I hope it will change behavior. Do you already have any indications in those countries where you have launched it that it is changing behavior, as far as you can share that?
Well, again, something like this, except for hits on a website, you can't really measure it very well, or booth visits. And also, as I said before, it is part of a whole campaign, so it isn't a one-off thing. We have a whole campaign that goes along with this, and we measure by especially market research trackers to see if there's a change in behavior. And we see that it is changing.
And if there are no other further questions, then I'd like to thank you, Suzanne, for this interesting presentation. Thank you very much.